Maya Angelou is brilliant, and she's right. She says words are things. They get into our carpets, they get into our wallpaper and into our curtains, they get into your clothes, and finally they get into you. Words are things. I think we have this subversive power that most of us, we go through our days mostly unaware, and it's the power of our words. Words that you speak have power. They are powerful. They change the lives of people around you, and ultimately, they change you. I think they say this, that because of texting and Twitter and social media, there's a decline in literacy and language in America, that we've reduced reading novels to 144 characters. And isn't it true when you text someone, sometimes we text in a hurry or we email in a hurry, and sometimes we get the words wrong, and words matter. Have you ever had Steve Jobs autocorrect on you on your iPhone, all right, and you just blast out a swear word to coworkers or something really inappropriate? That's the worst, because words matter. Words have this power about them. As I say that, I think about what happened to a young guy by the name of Jamal Hinton this week. He's a student. I think he's at McClintock High in Mesa. And he gets a text from a number that he's never seen before, and he wasn't sure what to do. So he's in class, and here's the text that comes in. Thanksgiving dinner is at my house, 3 p.m. Let me know if you're coming. Hope to see all of you. And Jamal texts back, well, who is this? And the person replies, your grandma. And then she attaches a grandma emoji. Grandma, and he puts question mark. Can I have a picture? Jamal tweets back, or texts back. Of who? She says. Of you, LOL. So she sends a picture. So here's her picture, and she's in Mesa. This is a Mesa grandma. And then he writes this. You're not my grandma. He replies with a surprise emoji, crying, laughing emoji, dead emoji, and then his own selfie, and here's his selfie, and he sends her his picture. You're not my grandma, okay? Something's wrong with this picture. But then he texts her back, and he says, can I still get a plate, though? So he's still hoping for a plate. And she texts back, of course you can. That's what grandmas do. They feed everyone, she replied, with a cake emoji. Surprised by the situation by this kind Mesa grandma, then Jamal Hinton, he goes ahead and he takes a screenshot of his conversation and he puts it on Twitter and he writes this, somebody's grandma is coming in clutch this year, aye. But then he failed to delete her number on Twitter, and it gets 290,000 likes, and 600 people text her saying, can I come for Thanksgiving dinner too? Here's her picture here. I don't know how many are coming, but he went over, just so Thanksgiving isn't so awkward, he went ahead and met the nice grandma in Mesa. Be very careful what you text people. That's all I'm trying to say here. You don't know who you'll end up inviting to Thanksgiving. Paul in Colossians chapter 3. So we're going through the book of Colossians, one chapter a week in November. We come to Colossians 3, and he says, be very careful about the words that you use and the words that describe you and define you, because the words that you use, they affect people's lives, and they will affect your life. So we'll start in verse 9. He says, you have taken off your old self with its old practices, and you have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge and the image of its creator. Move down to verse 12. As God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself, and then circle these words in your Bible: compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Verse 13, bear with each other and forgive. Circle that one. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord has forgiven you. And over all of these virtues, put on love that binds them all together, and let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. Circle peace, circle love. Those are the words that Paul is saying should describe you and define us. So many times the wrong words define us and describe us. But I want to start with this thought, that words have power. I have this key idea on the screen, and hopefully you take it home with you. The words you speak matter. Some last a lifetime, and your words affect those near you. for better or for worse, and ultimately your words will define you. I say words count. The words you speak matter because the things that we say, we end up doing. The things that we say, we end up speaking, and they affect people around us. In fact, if you think about your own life, there's been some words that have been spoken to you. It may be a sentence. Maybe it's a single word. Some of those words you'll remember for a lifetime. And some of those words will lift you up for a lifetime, or some of those words will push you down for a lifetime when you remember them. I know that you remember lines for a long time because if I mention lines from certain movies, I know which movie you'll know those lines. For example, if I said, "You had me at," thank you so much. All right, or if I said, "To infinity and," there we go. Or Luke, you're not my, no, it's not, you're not my father. Hang on. Luke, I am your, there we go. What's the name? Houston, we have a, all right, I've got one more. I'll be, oh, that was a few of you. We'll try this again. Wait, I wrote it down, and now I'm forgetting it. Go ahead, make my, there we go. All right. So those lines we never forget, and there's some lines that people have said about you that you will never forget. The words that we hear can affect us and shape us for a lifetime. I know that because I read a while ago about a Miss America. She had just been crowned Miss America, and this young woman is being interviewed, and this reporter says, "So when did you know you could become Miss America?" And her answer was, "Well, I always knew I would be Miss America." And the reporter said, "How could you say you always knew you'd be Miss America?" She said, "Well, you don't understand. When I was young, we had a postman that came to our house every day." By the way, can I just pause, time out here? For anyone under 30, a postman or postwoman is someone that comes, you read about in ancient times, we had these people just after the invention of fire, and they would come to your house and bring letters you write on paper, and they would slip it through your door, put it in a box on your house. They're called postal carriers. Anyway, so moving on. And so she said we had this postman that came to our house every day, and every day when he saw me, he would say, "How's my little Miss America?" He would say, "Miss America, you look beautiful today." He would say, "Miss America, what do you want for Christmas this year?" "Miss America, I'm so proud of you and how well you're doing in school." And every day he told me I was Miss America, so I always knew. Because the words that you speak, they shape the lives of people around you. I think sometimes we forget that. I think some words, like I said, lift us up. Some words push us down. When some certain words are spoken, you feel something, don't you? They actually move your soul. I know this because Veronica talks about a time when we had just been married. We're up at my grandmother's house for Thanksgiving dinner. We're in our early 20s, and she said something about being the daughter-in-law. And my grandmother said, hang on. In our family, there are no daughters-in-laws and sons-in-laws. There are no in-laws. She says, we just have grandsons and granddaughters. She said, in fact, to be honest with you, Veronica, I can't remember who was born into our family and who married into our family. And Veronica said, in that moment when my grandmother said that, she felt loved, she felt wanted, she felt like family. We feel something when certain words are spoken. That's why I say be very careful with the words that you speak, because words communicate ideas. They communicate emotions and feelings. Think about this with me. Have you ever had a moment in your life when you were trying to accomplish something, but you didn't think you could do it, but then someone comes along and they spoke just the right words. They were just words, but they inspired you and they lifted you up. You felt like a failure, but then they came along and they said, I believe in you. You really can do this. You should do this. And you thought everything else you had heard in the past was wrong, and they just spoke a few words. Or maybe you were down, maybe even depressed, discouraged, in a very dark place, and then someone says just the right words. And they were just words, but they lifted you up and out of that place that you were. Words have the power to do that. I don't think we should be surprised at the power of the words that we speak, because when you open the Bible to its opening pages, you read about God creating the universe. And in Genesis 1, what does it say he does to create the universe? It says God spoke. He just used words. The Hebrew word for word is dabar. The root word is davar. Dabar, it means word. A word is spoken, but it has a dual meaning. It has two meanings. It means a word is spoken, but then it also means something happens. Yahweh dabars, and the world is created. God speaks, something happens. And then Jesus comes along and he says the same thing happens when you speak in faith. Your words, Jesus says, are powerful. In Matthew chapter 17, verse 20, I'm getting ahead of myself. Matthew 10, verse 20, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing is impossible. He says, when you speak, something happens. When you pray, prayers of faith, your prayer is powerful and effective. Your prayers are effective, and things move and things happen. But also, when you speak to people around you, your words have consequences. And so this leads me to my second thought, and it's this, that your words affect the lives of people around you that you care about. All right, let's go back to our text. Colossians 3, verse 13. He goes on, he says, bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord has forgiven you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity, and let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. In other words, become a person of peace, become a person of love. I started by saying that your life often is radically changed for the good or for the worse by the words of people around you. But sometimes we forget that the words that you speak can radically change the lives of people around you. That's why I began by saying you have a subversive power that many of us live mostly unaware. Maybe you think that your words don't matter much. Maybe you think that you say things all the time and it seems like no one is listening. You give your advice at work and they don't listen to a word. You come home and it seems like no one at home listens to you. Your husband or your wife or your sons or your daughters. Not even the dog will get off the couch when you yell at him. And so you think your words don't matter, but your words do matter. Your words affect people around you, even the smallest words. I think sometimes we say something and we think a person didn't hear it, or we think we just said it in passing. This weekend, Veronica and I were out on a dinner date, and this server gave us a great table by the window, and she just did a fantastic job. So at the end of the night, I gave her a healthy gratuity, and then as I'm giving her the whatever thing is, who knows what that's called, that the check comes in. Anyway, I'm giving it back to her, and I said, thank you for making this such a good night for us. And then she said this, she said, well, I appreciate you. And I thought, that's pretty powerful. And later that night I told Veronica, I said, why'd she say she appreciates us? I don't know. But those simple words in passing, I didn't forget. You think your words don't matter. And I simply want to remind you this morning that what you write, what you post, what you email, what you say, it matters. Paul says, you're a new person. And there's certain words that you used to say that it's time to get rid of. Here's a few of them. Go to verse 8 with me. He says, get rid of your anger, your hot tempers, your hatred, your cursing, and your obscene language. I don't know if you've thought about this much, but I think some words are toxic. I think there's some lines that we say are toxic. Lines like, you embarrass me, or I'm ashamed of you, or you're a failure, or you're not smart enough. Those are toxic words. James, Jesus' brother, says, be very careful with the words that you speak because they change the course of people's lives. James 3:9, with the tongue we praise the Lord God our Father, And with it, we curse human beings who have been made in God's image. Out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be. Those are toxic words he's talking about. I think there are other words, other lines that when you speak them, you inspire your children or your husband or your wife or your coworkers. Words like, I believe in you, or words like, you can do it. Or words like to your kids, you're beautiful today, to your daughter, to your son, you look so handsome in that. Or to your coworkers, that was such a smart decision, or you're a good leader. Or to someone really close to you, you simply say, I love you. And those simple words, it not just changes their days, it changes who they are. In the Bible, we often read about people who are people of blessing or people who are people of cursing. There's stories like that. For example, in Numbers chapter 22, we read about Balaam and Balak. Balak was a Moabite king, and he's fighting the Israelites. And so he goes and he finds a prophet for hire named Balaam. And he says, Balaam, I need to pay you to curse these Israelites. So Balaam takes the money, and he follows them up to a hill. And he stands over the people of Israel, and he says, well, I'm a prophet of God. I need to ask God what to say. Well, God only gives him words of blessing. So he blesses them. Balak is furious. He says, I'm paying you well. How can you bless him? Let's go to another hill, a different vantage, and maybe you'll curse. Let's curse them from there. So Balaam goes up. He blesses them again. He blesses them from a third hill. And here, finally, Balak says, this is Numbers 24:10. Balak became angry with Balaam. He clapped his hands and said, I summoned you to curse my enemies, and you have blessed them 3 times. The Bible, and Paul says, as the new person in Christ, you are called to be a person of blessing, not cursing. Blessing is this. Blessing is the projection of good on another person's life. It's saying the very best to you. That's what you're saying when you bless someone with your words. When you curse someone with your words, it's a projection of the worst on their lives. The very worst to you is what you're saying. I think sometimes we forget that to bless someone, those are soul words. The words we bless with, it affects their heart and their soul. And many times, just the smallest nuance in our language can be a blessing or a curse. You can curse someone just with a raise of an eyebrow or the shrug of a shoulder. In fact, I've ended up cursing people I didn't even know I was cursing. I know that because my son was back from college, and he brought 2 buddies with him, and he said, hey, let's go play golf. And so we're playing, and one of the guys, it was his turn to putt, and he was talking to somebody. So I just said, hey, Chief, it's your turn to putt. And so he putts, and on the next fairway, my son comes up. He says, hey, my buddy says, you just chiefed him. You just called him Chief. I go, well, what's wrong with that? I said, I forgot his name. And he says, no, you're being sarcastic. You're insulting him. I said, what? To say boss or chief is an insult? I didn't know this. So he says, just say his name, Dad. Just say his name. So that was it. I didn't even know. But with the smallest change in our words or our language, we either curse or we bless people. In Proverbs chapter 12, verse 18, Solomon writes, careless words stab like a sword, but the words of wise people bring healing. I think maybe churches need to hold classes and seminars on how to be people of blessing and not cursing, because even sometimes people of cursing find their way into churches, and Paul is trying to change that. And we're trying to change that here at the Grove. We need new words in our everyday conversation, I think, to change the disparaging, just the barrage of disparaging words that so many of our children hear and so many of our coworkers hear. We can change that as God's people. The right words change everything. The right words become life-giving. When I say that, I think about a professor I had at Biola University. His name was Dr. Neil Anderson. In fact, I knew him really well because we worked together at a church also. And Dr. Neil Anderson was a professional counselor as well as a professor, and he writes about and used to, in his lectures, talk about a young woman. We'll say her name is Monica. And thank you guys, they're bringing up, I'm going to use this. And he has this woman in his office, and he's meeting with her, and she's telling him about her past. And her past has been a spiral of mistakes. She's been married and divorced, I think it was 3 or 4 times. She'd been in and out of rehab. Every job she'd ever held, she lost it. She was in piles of debt. And he said, finally, after hearing her story of this lifelong spiral, he said, Monica, when did you feel this started to happen? And she says, well, I know exactly the day that it happened. He said, you know the day? She said, yeah. She said, I was in 6th grade. And she said, when I was in 6th grade, I had a teacher who used to get annoyed with me because my mother was a single mom. And I had 3 brothers and sisters, and she was busy. And so she didn't always have time to brush my hair in the morning. And she was so busy at night, she didn't have time to help me with my homework. And she didn't always have time even to wash our clothes. She was so busy, so my clothes were sometimes dirty. I didn't always have a bath like the other kids. No one brushed my hair and put ribbons in it. And I think all of this annoyed my teacher. And a lot of times my homework was done wrong because no one helped me with that either. And so the teacher on this one day, after being frustrated with her poor homework, she said to the kids, she said, Monica has really frustrated me today. And so I want to ask all of you who have been frustrated by Monica to come up and write on the board the things that you do not like about Monica. This is a true story. He writes about it. He talks about it. This actually happened. And Monica said the board started to fill with the words that the kids said about her. Like, Monica smells, one wrote. Monica has crooked teeth. Monica is annoying. Monica is dumb. One finally wrote, I hate Monica. And she said to Neil, she said, Dr. Anderson, she said, I can't get those words out of my head. She says, every day of my life, I keep remembering those same words. And after listening to her, Dr. Anderson said, Monica, I want you to know this, that Jesus Christ has come along, and he's removed all of those words, everything that's happened in your past, and all of those disparaging words that kids or anyone have said about you. He said, I want you to picture this chalkboard that was filled with 25 things that these kids didn't like about. I want you to see that Jesus Christ is taking an eraser and he's wiping it clean and he's getting rid of all of those words, and they're gone forever. And he said, even better than that, I'm going to turn this since we're And he said, even better than that, Monica, he said, I want you to know that Jesus has written new words about you, beautiful words. Words like, Monica is brilliant. Monica is loved. Monica is beautiful. Monica is perfect and wonderfully made. And Monica is my child. That's who you are, Monica. Those old words are not true about you anymore. Do you see why I say the words that we speak have power to ruin a person's life or to change? And Jesus Christ comes along with these new words that change everything. All right, my last thought. Thank you guys for bringing this up. My last thought comes from, let's go back to verse 7. And in Colossians chapter 3, and it's this: let the words of Christ define you. Because ultimately, the words that we speak to other people end up being the words that define us. And so we read this in verse 7. You used to walk in these ways, in the life you once lived, but now you must rid yourself of things such as anger, malice, slander, filthy language. Remove these from your lips and do not lie. He says those are old words that described you and defined you, but there's new words. And he gives us a whole new set, verse 12. As God's chosen people, you're holy and loved. So clothe yourselves. Let these kinds of words describe you: compassion, humility, kindness, gentleness, patience, forgiveness, love, peace. It's a whole new set of words for you. Jesus said that What we speak, this is Matthew 15:18, what comes out of the mouth gets its start in the heart. That's why I say that the words that we speak to others, ultimately, they come back and they get into our own heart. The words that we speak to others are ultimately the words that describe and define us. If I were to ask someone who knows you very well to describe you with just 2 or 3 words, 1 or 2 or 3 words, it could be your husband or your wife or your son or your daughter or your neighbor or coworker. What words would they use to talk about you? Because when people hear your name, their minds conjure up certain images and certain words. And it's a real piercing question. What comes to people's mind when they think about you? Do they think about someone who knows Jesus Christ and whose words reflect him? Or do they think about someone who reflects just the opposite? Paul has this great list of the old words and the new words, and he talks about forgiving others. He says, bear with each other and forgive one another. If anyone has a grievance against someone else, forgive as the Lord has forgiven you. If you, at this moment in your life, are in conflict with someone, I want to challenge you. I want to invite you to resolve that and to end that, because that's not the way we're called to live. I have a sheet that I've shared with our staff here for years. About once a year, I pull it out. And let me just share this with you. And I've titled it, Living with Grace and Peace. Because in any environment where people come together and work together, you're bound to have disagreements and even conflict. But there's ways to resolve it. So here we go. Realize that all of us have shortcomings and need grace from one another. I have this in your handout as well. I need to be as patient with you as I need you to be of me. I need to respect you and honor you. I must try to use a kind voice at all times. I need to be honest about my feelings and not force you to guess. I need to acknowledge that bad moods are an unacceptable excuse for unkind behavior. And then know I will always love you as Jesus has loved me. And then to resolve conflict it's always your move to make the relationship right. If I hurt your feelings and I know it, I need to say I'm sorry. Number 2, if you hurt my feelings without realizing it, I need to tell you how I feel rather than harbor bitterness. 3, if you sincerely apologize to me, I'm obligated to forgive you. And even when you fail to ask forgiveness, I will forgive you as Christ has forgiven me so many times. So we'll just end with this thought that you are a new person. You are not who you used to be. And so my hope today is that as you go out and live in the name of Jesus Christ, people see who you are and they start to use new words, the best words to talk about you. And that you become a person of blessing, not of cursing, who makes a habit of blessing people around you every day with your words.